Welcome to JustB2B Leaders, a podcast where we are going to interview leaders from B2B companies that they are willing to generate a better business, more predictable and scalable through the transformation of their organizations. Thank you for joining today. Once again, today we have a great guest, which is Mr. Chris Evans. Chris, thank you very much. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Okay. So first question: Who is Chris Evans? Tell us about you.
Okay, I'll start where I am and I'll work back. I live in Barcelona, just outside of Barcelona, a place called Oliveira, if you know where it is, behind Sitges. Married, one child. She was actually born here, so we'll be trying to get her Spanish passport at some point. Been in the Barcelona area for about 5-6 years. Before that, I was out in Australia for 6 years or so. I'm British, as you can tell by my very, very British accent. Done a lot of traveling around different places, worked in many different regions. And I've been in sales for about 20 years. So I started off as an engineer that we would sell to our type of engineering software previously. I was a bad engineer, but I was relatively good with people and problem solving, right? So being good with people and problem solving and having an engineering background, aptitude, let's say.
What was the outcome? The outcome was you, right?
The outcome was that I moved into selling more technical software in a B2B, and I started off with Yellow Pages. I'm sure many people remember Yellow Pages. I started off with Yellow Pages and a desk phone. And 20 years later, this is now my third time as a sales VP working in scaling a B2B SaaS software company.
Very good. So when and where we meet? Do you remember?
We met probably, it was around... I knew of you before because you were doing a lot of the global development and training of the team and enabling of the team in a company that we both work for together called, if we're allowed to talk about that stuff.
SolidWorks, yeah.
SolidWorks, sure, Dassault Systems. And then you were rolling out a global initiative and I was
for
the
solution.
For more of the solution selling, multi-product selling. And I was the head of sales over in Australia at that time. And
I remember this day arriving there to Sydney with after a 12 hours flight, and the guy picking me in the airport with an agenda like that, say, Oscar, don't worry, you're going to be very busy.
Yeah. So and you were actually rolling out. So you were rolling out around the solution selling, how to present this certain type of way in a different sales approach than what we may have been used to. From a product to a real solution selling. And so I was working with you, but an internal one of your students at that kind of point. And that worked very well. Actually, I took that and I then trained a lot of our team and it did work. So thank you very much. I don't know if I ever said that, but thank you very much.
Very good. Okay, so you, over the years, you've been in different companies. And I'm sure you have seen the different ways to organize the sales team. So tell us about the different sales organizations you have faced and pros and cons.
Yeah. I think it probably warrants sort of starting and going back and looking at the history of the sales organization evolution. And the reason that I say...
In B2B.
In B2B. And there's and let me say, I'm coming from a B2B software perspective. Okay, now I recognize there's many different listeners and people that are coming from different backgrounds, but a lot of the principles will carry through, even if there might be some niche differences. Okay, so, and it also, if I go through the history, it might have people think about where they are on that kind of evolution and where they might be looking at going potentially. So I think if we start right at the beginning, typically you had a sales organization, you had the salesperson, right? And in this case, say the sales guy being me. And you wore every single hat. You did everything. So you were trying to find new business. You were visiting current customers, trying to see if you could do some expansion. You were trying to keep their business. So you were doing account management or renewal of maintenance. You were... doing prospecting, you were fielding leads that were coming in. You did absolutely everything. Your day was split between 10 different tasks, let's say, and you were given a number, and that was your number, and you owned it in your territory.
And don't you think that this was because we were small at that time, as a company, as a team? Could be like that?
It could be, but even if I look outside and I look at some of the larger companies, at the time, they were still operating in that typically in that mentality. And I'll talk about why, and technology advancements and things like that comes into that a lot that we didn't have 20 years ago, right? So, as we go through this evolution, I'll bring that piece in. So what happened is, I was the sales guy. I just referred to the sales guy being me. I was the sales guy, and I'm running around, I'm doing this, and 1 minute I'm in Yellow Pages trying to find a company that we should talk to. Then I got an inbound lead coming in, and then I've got to go and set up a demonstration with my engineer to go see someone else, but there's a customer over here, and there's a renewal contract going on over here, and I'm wearing all these different hats, and I'm trying to manage and juggle everything within a territory, right?
Yep.
And it worked, right? It worked. We did
scaled.
well. We scaled, right? I'll talk about growing and scaling in a minute. That's another thing we'll talk about. But anyway, and then there was this clever idea. Hang on a minute. Under this sales of being this guy selling, some people have got different expertise. Okay, some people are good at initiating conversations. Some people are good at meeting people, and they like the thrill of the chase, and they like jumping in and lots of differences and trying to win new business. Some people are much better relationship builders to going in and nurturing an account, getting to know them, build that relationship, build that partnership, build a trusted advisor approach, if you will, with that account at the time. And so there was this kind of split through the industry that took people from being a hunter to more of what we call a farmer, an account manager, if you will. And so there was this split. Right, you go look after customers.
First change, right?
This is one of the first changes.
Hunters and farmers.
Yeah, hunters and farmers. And then, the next sort of evolution of this was, well, hunters, you've got this expensive resource that is best faced in front of a customer, a new prospect, I should say. And they're also spending a lot of time trying to find these people to go talk to. So we brought in this concept of, and I use the term inside sales, but that term has been changed over the years. So don't think of inside sales about what we think about inside sales today. What we basically had is, highly respectfully, maybe an appointment setter that was somewhat of a receptionist during time when reception was needed, and when they weren't doing reception, they were trying to set appointments for the sales guy to go out. So I had someone that was answering the phones and doing that kind of stuff, and when they're not, I'd say, hey, I'm going over to this industrial estate. Could you call through these companies and try and set me a meeting so I can walk through the door? And therefore now we're using a lower cost resource in order to try and do the administrative upfront first touch point. So my job is just get me in front of people, and my calendar is full of walking through and meeting new clients, because that's what I did well, okay? Then we had this thing called the internet start to take off, right? I don't know if anyone's heard of that, right? Okay.
What do you mean?
I think it's going to be huge. I think it's going to be big, okay? And so you had this technological advancements, okay? And so with this, you had the ability now to gain more access to more data, more information, more people. With all of that, this brought the new era of sales and marketing, and also, on the other side of it, customer education. Things that none of us had access to before. Marketing didn't have access to it, sales didn't have access to it, and most probably customers didn't have access to it either. Information, bam. And that's another thing we can talk about, customers being more educated through a sales process, unless you have more of a disruptive approach, but we can talk about that later on. And so with that, new technology came through, and there were, I want to jump a little bit because I'm conscious of time, and some of the juicy stuff is more, as we get through the conversation.
No, that's fine.
But with that, this created a new delivery platform.
It's a great journey, because I'm listening to you, and I'm even remembering the years where we were there.
I can remember. I can.
And
I've got a grey hair for each of them.
I'm older than you, so I have a few years that behind what you're explaining.
Exactly. And so with this, you had a couple of things happening. So 30 seconds on the type of software delivery. Back in the day, you would have this perpetual model where you would have a cash cow where you would sell our license, typically of installed on-premise software. And that had a big upfront cost, depending on, who you work for and what type of solution that you had. And on top of that, you'd have this sort of annual maintenance fee that a company would pay. That meant, we'll give you the latest update, and if you've got a problem, we'll help you, all right? but the money was largely made up front with that sale. With a subscription economy coming that was able to be driven by all the things I just spoke about in the technological advancement side of things, and even then one step further with SaaS, software as a service, which we were mentioning earlier, and I'm sure many people are familiar with, it changed the dynamic of the sales organization all the way through from that access and that top of funnel lead generation all the way through the process to where now the cash cow has gone. And now the LTV, the lifetime value of a customer, is now getting important. Your subscription cost per year, if I was selling to you, I might sell you something up front that was 10,000 year one and then 2,000 each year. Well, now I've got a subscription offering, which is maybe 3,000 per year.
Yeah.
Now you just do the basic graph in your head, right? And you've got to renew each year. I never stop selling to you now. On that first model I sold, and yeah, I wanted you to renew and I wanted to get the extra 1,000, but the money was in going to the next customer.
And then is when it came the customer success concept, which in the
Exactly.
program in the SADC we talk about that, and coming from software, and some people listen and say, wow, that's that we even didn't have the idea internally,
Exactly.
right? But it's a must, because if you don't secure the success of the client,
Now
they will stop paying.
now you are in this circular motion. And so if I go back to the front end, the pointy end of the stick, the top of funnel, those appointment setters now have become a professional role, which we would call an SDR or a BDR. And there's some differences in the way that people think about the terminology across the industry. But these people, their day job every day is more on engagement and qualification. The concept is still there that as a salesperson, I want that salesperson out every day in front of the right people, pre-qualified. And so now with all of the access to information, data, people, personalization about how I can actually try and get you to have that first awareness and interest in my product. We're now driving more inbound leads, and we have the ability to do more of an outbound approach. So we have this, what we call sales development department, which is typically SDR, BDR, and we split that into an inbound motion. Someone's knocking the door, been on the website, downloaded some gated material, an ebook, or click saying, give me a price. They're knocking the door some way. And an outbound motion where we are setting up all this information that we can find using sales engagement platforms that we have. I won't give names here, but if people want to know, I can talk through them, which gives you the ability to set up automated tasks to be able to set cadences to go out to new prospects. Everyone in this room has probably, or listening, has probably had, they get a phone call, they get a connection request on LinkedIn, they're then getting an email, they get this set of a cadence of maybe 5 to 10 steps of someone trying to reach out to them before they don't hear from them again, they move on, and maybe 6 months later they get it again. That's the outbound motion.
So if I super simplify what you're saying, your experience is that, and I totally agree, is that we move from a one-man band, one person doing
everything,
to slicing the different tasks that should be done to connect with a new name account. And this means that either you really make your team members to grow on those skills that they are very good. And let me challenge a little bit. Or you make them very lazy in other activities. What is the risk? Because if you think like a CEO, right? One of the benefits of one man band is that the guy is independent. I have one person able to do everything. When it comes a crisis, and perhaps I have to downsize the team, you have people that is able to do one part of the job, but then perhaps you need to cut some of the resources. What is your experience there?
Yeah, I think that in where we are today,
or it doesn't because the answer could be you can have a five guys team, and you can still have the different tasks. It doesn't mean that you have to have 100 people in a hub, right? Doing that. What is your?
If you think about it in this way, I'm a
What is the minimum unit? What is the minimum team to get the job done for you?
Well, that's an interesting question.
We didn't prepare this one.
We didn't.
I'm sorry.
That's absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine. In my situation, if I think about it, if I'm a CEO, do I want an expensive salesperson fielding inbound leads where maybe 1 or 2 out of 10, 20% of those are something we could actually work with? No, that's not a good use of that person's time. Do I want that same person trying to renew a subscription contract, which is 1 license at a small company?
No.
No, I don't. What I want is to hire people at the appropriate market rate and market value to get the best return. So I would have a out of university, graduate, young, hungry person that wants to make their first step into sales that I can pay accordingly to be running out, trying to knock down doors, kick down doors, and get my experienced salesperson in that door, or field leads that are coming in and qualify them using a structured qualification methodology. Won't go into that now, but we can at a later time. In order to make sure that this company that we're speaking to is at the right stage. If I try bundle all of these things back into one person, they are going to be master of none. They're going to be expensive because I'm going to have to pay for the best bit that they can do while they are doing other tasks which do not give me the return for what I'm paying them. When we look at this as well, this is not just the salesperson. I spoke about the farming. So now we broke that down into account managers.
Okay.
Then we brought in the concept of customer success.
Yeah.
Because you've got now in this subscription or SaaS, you've got the new business, you've got the qualification, you've got bring them in as a new customer, okay? You've then got the onboarding, you've then got the making sure that they're running, they're happy, the cross-sell, the upsell opportunity, and then you've got the renewal. And that renewal is nearly typically the same value, if not more, than that first sale.
So let's imagine that you are a CEO of a new company. You only have you have the chance to hire 5 people. How would you split the jobs within a 5 sales team? It would be 1 for customer success, another 1 for key account management, another
think,
2.
Yeah,
so
I mean this is all going to come
play
down
this
to
game.
We can play the game, but it depends on what is your product, what is your pricing,
claro.
What is your end user? What is your use case?
Yeah.
What stage are you at in your scaling or your company? Are you a small department in a big company? Are you a small department and you are the company as a startup? So it's not really possible to ask. But if I was generic and I had to just say generic, I would think about it in this way. I need to find new business. If I'm only a 5-person team, I'm going to consider that new business is quite important to us. Okay. I'm not just being given 10 contracts with Coca-Cola, BMW, and Bosch, right? I'm going to go out and I want to find new business. Therefore, I need to get new business. So I would have an SDR, BDR function, which is working on inbound and inbound working with marketing, outbound working on a sales approach in order to find me prospects that are qualified, meet the criteria which would be a suitable ICP for us, a company, an ideal candidate profile that is a company that we could do business together with.
Okay.
So out of my 5, I'm taking at least 2, right?
Okay.
Because I need top of funnel.
What about the other 3?
The other 3, I'm going to say I probably need at least 1 person that can take those qualified leads, can run through what I prefer as a generic, a value-added sales process. Okay, I won't go into that now, again, unless we want to. In order to take them from a qualified lead to a customer.
Okay.
So again, out of my 5, I'm probably going to have 2 people doing that. And this is where we might get smart. Maybe with those 2, I have more of a, depending on my product and all the other things we said, I might have more of a transactional approach to an SMB market, a smaller segment, it's not a small segment, but a smaller tier where volume is the game. And I might have 1 person that is dealing with more strategic or enterprise accounts, longer sales cycles, more investment, more stakeholders, typically larger ticket sales, a higher ASP, a higher average sales price. Okay. So I'm going to start thinking about depending on things.
And the last one?
And the last thing is I'm going to look at, if I've only got 5, I'm probably going to be looking at a customer success manager.
Because there is people that they only have 5.
Sure.
This is why I'm saying
I'm going to look at, in my world of B2B software, SaaS, I would then be having a account manager / customer success person.
Okay.
And their job is the renewal of that business, somewhat the requirements of keeping them to renew, i.e. bringing the right people to have them trained and onboarded. And if I've only got one, not two, I would probably arm them with some upsell, cross-sell thinking as well. But really, I want to break that function out into account management and customer success. So I need 6.
Okay, very good. When we were preparing this podcast, we were laughing because I asked to Chris what is a BDR and a SDR for you, because every time that I talk to somebody around the world, they have a different definition. So what is your definition? What is a BDR doing? What is an SDR doing?
Yeah. I've adopted based on the company that I've come into.
You're a good citizen.
Yeah, I mean, it's as simple as this.
What could be the common, well accepted across the board definition?
Typically, a BDR, business development representative, and an SDR, a sales development representative. BDR, SDR. Typically, depending on what company you work at and where you go, one typically works on an inbound motion, and the other typically works on an outbound motion.
Okay.
And you have some that do both. So, for example, I might have...
BDR, to be very pedagogic, the VDR, it's somebody which is doing efforts for somebody to call us inbound, right?
They are taking that inbound from, typically driven from marketing.
Okay. So they are
Someone's knocking the door.
Lead qualification.
Lead qualification.
BDR.
Stuff's coming in, and we're qualifying through a range of, depending on your methodology. Are they the right company that we could do business with?
Okay.
To set a next step.
SDR is upside down.
So the other way is now going out. Here we have, in my territory, we have 50 accounts that we want to go after. They have not knocked our door. And I'm going to use an outbound sales approach to identify the right people within those accounts with the right message to try and drive an interest and engagement and ultimately a next step. Now, SDR and BDR, in our world right now, an SDR is outbound and a BDR is inbound, but equally, if not more, that is flipped, depending on the company.
So you're saying, what you're saying is that the common, typical B2B professional we met 20 years ago now becomes 5 people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, that's a great thing. But I think you pointed out something very interesting, which is the fact that there are 2 reasons why this happened. One is technology, which enable us to do it and bring productivity and scaling, right? And we can discuss about growth and scale. And the second point is clients. The clients, they decided to value other things, right?
The customer experience, they are unfortunately more demanding than they were 20 years ago, because they knew Chris popping along in his car to talk to them once every 3 months, that worked to them. That doesn't work today. Neither should it, based on the type of products that we're bringing to them, the ongoing recurring revenue that we are looking for, so we are constantly selling. We've got to be making sure that those customers are delighted every single day, or they simply won't renew, and they will go to competitor ABC across the road that looks just as good. The competition is so fierce that you have to be constantly customer-centric with the type of software delivery that we have through a subscription economy or for a SaaS. It is an ongoing sales process. It's not sales handed over to deployment and goodbye. It's sales every day.
I was listening to you before, and you mentioned the difference between growth and scale, and it's super funny because yesterday night it was in Barcelona. Was celebrated the Tech Entrepreneur Night, and I was sitting down with the CEO. She was a she, and I mentioned scalability, and she said, "Hey, so why you talk about the scalability and you don't talk about growth?" So what is, and then I answered to her, right? What is your point of view? What is the difference between growing and scale?
This is the Chris Evans thought, okay? So I don't know if this is right or wrong.
We are interviewing Chris Evans.
This isn't in a book or something. It's the way I think about this. I've got 5 people on my team. Let's say with those 5 people, they can all do 10,000 a month. Easy numbers, okay? If I want to grow, I could hire 5 more people. I've grown. But are they now all doing 10,000 each across those 10 people? Or have I dropped my overall productivity and output? That's growth to me. You are growing your output by throwing more people at the issue. Okay. To truly scale, you need to maintain that output per person that you're bringing in the way that I think about it. Of course, my CEO says to me, you can double your team. Great, I go and hire 50 more people and we do 20% more. Did I scale or did I grow? For me, we grew. I didn't really do a good job scaling the team. For me, and it's all, you will get to a point where we'll just hire 1,000 people, do 1,000.
Yeah.
Oracle. Let's just hire 1,000 people, we'll do 1,000. I'm going to think about that, because then there's a lot of people a year later that are back in the market again because we didn't feed them. We didn't give them everything we need. We didn't give them the technology. We can get into that in a minute, some of the big problems that you might face. So for me, that fundamental point around growing and scaling is, am I growing as in I'm putting more resources in to get a bit more out? That's growth, and that's great, and it works. Especially if you've got loads of VC cash and you're just burning through it. Fine, whatever. To truly scale, which is very difficult, is that output of 10 people versus 5 people. Did you double it? Now we're scaling. Now again, maybe it's not 1 for 1, but are we 80%? Are we truly scaling, or are we just throwing more resources in order to try and grow? And that's how I might think about growing and scaling in the very simplistic Chris mind.
My answer to her was, you grow when you look to the number. You scale when you are absolutely aware how you get to the number.
Very good point, which is another thing I was going to touch on.
That's the point. It's it's art or engineering, right? It's you really scale when you can really map cause effect.
Exactly.
I got that because I implemented this process. I measured this. I did this way the onboarding. I create the playbooks. They follow the playbooks.
Correct.
The sales manager is doing this and this and that.
Yep.
And once you have the model, you can copy paste.
You can copy paste. And you bring in salesperson 6, 7, 8, and largely, and I'm a salesperson, so I can say this: we want to cookie cutter. That's what we want. We want to get the best we can. We get the A player and we cookie cutter. That's now with scaling. So,
very good. So, how is for you the B2B sales organizations? How they will look in the future? What is your and that's for sure your opinion? We move from one-man band to a high technological approach enabled by technology. People focus on one thing and another thing. What do you think is going to be the where we are going to be in the future? Where we are heading?
So I wrote down some themes this morning as I was thinking about this, because there is so much that we could talk about. And actually it's interesting because one of the comments that I made, exactly you're going to hear again, is around technology and automation. So, where we are today with AI, I spend at least an hour a week right now engaging with companies out there that are providing software solutions that I could look at that are coming from an automation/AI perspective, in order for me to be able to have my team, my SDRs, my BDRs, my account executives, my sales team, to be more productive. You can now get software that you can plug in the type of persona at the type of company, and it will go out and scrape and bring me everything that I need and all the contacts that we could possibly find. Number one. Number two, I could then say, could you write some form of personalized message that would be tweaked to each one of those 10,000 people that you've just scraped and pulled me in? Not the same. 10,000 different messages. Sure. Could you also send it out on my behalf and put them into a sequence cadence So now through AI, I can find anyone. I can gain all of their contact details. I can write a personalized message to them in order to try and drive up what we believe would be their biggest interest based on the typical pain points or value add that they're looking for. And I can have it all sent out to those people while I'm sat having a coffee. And this is one of these trends.
Can I challenge that?
Of course, because I also have a similar thinking. I think I know where you're going on this, right?
Yeah, so I think I have an expression in Spanish, which I don't know how it's going to sound in English, which is, even you digitalize a monkey, is still a monkey.
Yep. But the monkey did evolve into the human, apparently. So
that's the point.
Just made that up. That was good.
That's the point. The point is, don't start by technology if you don't have the right people.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And this is where we are right now. I'm saying, because there's two things that come out of this. In theory, I've got the right people because I've been going through this sales evolution for the last 20 years. So in theory, I now know the people, where they sit, what they do, how I can get the most out of them. But if I can layer in the right technology to make them even more productive and better, I absolutely will. And so one of the big, well, actually, we'll get to that on recommendations. And so automation and AI is a huge trend when we look at future sales organization. You didn't define the timescale, you just said the future. So I'm saying the future, 5 years, whatever. As we go, we have to be, because if I don't and I don't agree with it, there is a high chance my competition is probably going down that path. So
yeah, this was the second challenge.
As a sales VP,
how we are going to compete. If you
Correct.
take a look to the automotive industry, it ends up in players in the market that they use the same machines, the same software to make cars, the same suppliers. So at the end of the day, a car is a car. It's built with a different logo, but it's a commoditization somehow.
Yeah.
So how we are going to compete between companies if the relationship is enabled by the same technology and educated by the same chat, right? That's
Yep.
the thing. It's like, don't you think that this will make a bunch of processes like a commodity?
I absolutely do. And there's another point on here that I was talking, that I was going to bring up on where we're going. So yes, we're going to see more technological advancements that sales and marketing, by the way, of course, can and absolutely will leverage. And if you don't, you will be left behind. There's no dispute on that.
Yeah.
The question is, at what point will the monkey become the human? And I still think, exactly as you're saying, I think we've still got a fair amount of time. I still think I could retire in sales. I still think there's enough runway to go.
What is your position today in the company?
Vice President of Sales.
So how many people reporting? How many people do you have sales managers reporting to you?
Yeah, I've got about. It's relatively small. There's about 50 of us in my side, but the company's only 200. So I've got 25% of the company.
But what is your first line? What is the position of your first line reporting to you? How do you call? What is the name?
This is an interesting point. I've been growing and scaling, but actually we are, through process and through output, I put us much more on the scale tick right now. So quick that I'm now having to bring in management, because basically I'm running a huge amount directly.
Okay.
So I'm now recruiting for management to come in.
Let me tell you where I was trying to head. So I truly believe that sellers is not the problem. The problem is sales management.
Sales management is one of the hardest jobs to get right. And the sales management and one of the things I'm talking about, themes as well, is more on sales enablement, because no point having technology if you're not enabling people.
Yeah.
No point in having people go walk through a door if they don't know how to connect and how to do business with people. And so that's going to tie into a few of the other points, is automation technology, automation AI, absolutely. Okay, I invest an hour a week minimum talking to providers. So I can make sure I've got my finger on the pulse. I know what's working, and I run tests. And we're launching a couple of tests with different things to see what works, and I'm measuring it against the human. And I want to see what's the best output so that we can stay finger on the pulse ahead of the game. Because if I'm not, my competition's doing it. They're probably not, but they might do, right?
They will learn.
They will. That's the risk, okay? Enablement. You know a lot about enablement. You've been enabling people for many, many, many years. But that drive is not now just how do you shake hands and sit down and ask the right question. It's how do you leverage everything around you.
For me, it's not even enablement. It's a daily. We call the drizzle in the program, right?
Yeah.
It's like being there on a daily and an
Absolutely.
hour on a minute basis.
Yep.
And this is why, for me, to scale, there is a critical position, which is a truly B2B sales manager, which is a person focused on making people, produce people. They
Correct.
produce, they source the talent, they hire the talent, they onboard the talent, they secure that they look the similar way for the clients to recognize a way of working. Because this is going to make a difference. Technology, it's going to be a commodity. Technology is going to be for everybody.
Completely agree.
Perhaps not a commodity, but will become a must. If you don't have technology, you will be out of the game.
Yep.
And if you have technology, you will be allowed to come to the party, right?
Exactly.
Somehow.
So one of the sayings there that it was told to me a long time ago, and I still live by it, and maybe I'm a little bit archaic, but is all things being equal, your differentiator is the salesperson. All things being equal. So that carries through, all things being equal. You can have all the technology, all the AI, all the automation. You can reach a certain point where a salesperson engages. We can talk about sales-led growth versus product-led growth. That's another thing about trends that I was going to touch on if we get there. In the example where a salesperson is required, which I still see to be something we will need for the foreseeable, based on the type of products that you have. Sidetrack. I was speaking with a company the other day that are PLG, product-led growth.
What is, for those that they don't know?
They don't have any salespeople. They typically offer on a freemium model that they then monetize when the user wants to unlock different types of functionality. So you might think Spotify, Netflix, whatever it is. There isn't a guy from Netflix going, right, Chris, let's talk about that €6. No, it's priced at a point with a market, with an audience and a total addressable market that
so no sellers, no channel, no nothing. Just
no
the
sellers.
Product is helping you to grow.
So you have a freemium model, and then it would be pay €5 a month, and with apps and the way that we can access and a subscription economy. This is the kind of thing. €5 a month every month for 20 years. Well, you start doing the maths. It's a good model.
Where is the red line for PLG to don't be doable?
So there's a couple of things. The price point of your product. If I've got a product which is €20,000 a year, it's unlikely someone's going to just play with it and go, enter credit card details, €20,000, right? It's unlikely. That's going to happen. Unlikely. If we can find something where that happens, then we go do it, okay? And so when I was speaking to this company, let me give the company name. I was speaking to this company. They're a very cool company doing some great technology in AI, and it's PLG right now. And I said, so the head of marketing, who loves this stuff, I said, what do your customers look like? And they gave me an overview, and they said, well, we've got small customers, and I said, so you know that you're going to need salespeople pretty soon. And the answer was, yeah, I know. And I didn't expect that. I said, well, why do you think that? I said, well, we can have a freemium model. We might go and drop, silly example, this is not the case, but silly example. You might drop 100 users into Bosch now, which is a company of X thousand people, global. And you're now relying on that freemium model and word of mouth and that credit card input to try and drive. Now,
like entry level.
Entry level. Now, an enterprise salesperson will collect all that data. And now they're going to piece together a positioning to actually go in and join the dots internally to drive a wider POC, POV, proof of concept, proof of value, to drive it across with an internal case study they've already used to take it up to the right management.
So you can combine both.
Now you're running the deal. So Many companies will be looking at a product-led growth strategy in order to get that freemium, that user, try and monetize that by unlocking certain things, or you give certain amount for free, or whatever it might be. And then the enterprise, the more complex sales approach, comes in to join those dots across a company to turn that now into a wider annual multi-year deal, which is going to make sense to both parties. And so because of that, we may see more of this PLG happening for where we have products that are priced in the right way for the audience, and they have the size of audience. But largely with that, there's going to be a requirement to be complemented by a sales approach. That's in the companies that are PLG. Now, many are not. They are sales-led. You have to. My company right now, it is sales-led. We go out and we either, with sales and marketing, we either knock the door, we disrupt their thinking, we show them how they could be doing it better, and they move forward, or through our marketing efforts and event efforts, etc., they say, I think we've got a problem. Let's knock the door and see what's going on. We're not at a point that we could do product-led growth because of the price point of a product, the complexity of our product, the support needed to run that product. It's not Spotify.
The decision-making process.
Absolutely.
Very, very good. Okay, so if you would have to give a piece of advice to B2B CEOs and leaders listening to us about how to organize their sales team efforts, what would be your best
Yeah, there's
advice?
there's a few things that I wrote down. How long have we got?
Go for the most important one, the one that you would give to a good friend joining a sales position in a new company. Man, don't do that, or do that.
I think that going up if I was to go sales leader, my first thing is if I was speaking to you as a CEO, and I'll maybe reel off a couple and then you can say, jump in on that one. The first one is sales and marketing alignment, and I can talk about this for days if we want to. Where I have seen the most success is where you have sales and marketing fully aligned on the outcome of revenue.
What is the reason of the lack of alignment in your experience? I tell you my experience.
I can tell you exactly. It's the way that you set the expectations and you target the separate teams. Hypothetically, I am a sales leader that carries a number of, I'm going to make this up, this has nothing to do with me, or I carry a number of 10 million, example.
Can I interrupt?
Yep.
My experience is CEO mindset. When the CEO doesn't get it, you will not have alignment.
So, let me get there. Because this is exactly what I wrote down. Let me explain the problem and then how I think I would fix that based on exactly what you were saying. If 50% of my 10 million, we have run the numbers and we know 50% comes from outbound efforts that I just explained earlier, and maybe 50% comes from inbound efforts. Those inbound efforts are being driven by a very good job that marketing is doing to get people to get off the sofa and knock my door. Okay. Now, I carry 10 million. My sales team, between them, carry the 10 million, maybe a buffer 11 million, whatever we do. And each one of them has a very clear target of what they must achieve. Now, if you don't tie that back and reverse engineer that back in to marketing, you end up in a situation where marketing does a lot of good stuff. And they do. But we're not specifically targeting exactly on what that good stuff is at the conversion rates that we expect in order to drive the revenue. So I've got 50% of my revenue anchored on a department that does a lot of good stuff but isn't thinking about the outcome of their good stuff. And so for me, very, very, very controversial point, for me, marketing should also carry the understanding of what the sales accepted opportunities should be as their output. Forget MQLs, I care, but they are a way of me getting sales accepted opportunities, which are real sales pipeline, okay, which lands in sales. Sales have to close on them, and you have an SLA between sales and marketing. You need to deliver for 50% X amount of pipeline that comes from marketing, and we as a sales team must make sure that we are converting at these conversion rates. You have to build the model, fully understand it. Head of marketing, head of sales, best friends, we have a combined effort to hit this number. I'm going to find and source this much. You're going to find and source that much. And we measure it daily.
Who should design that?
And this is where you need the right person. If you have two people, head of sales and head of marketing, reporting to a CEO that doesn't necessarily truly understand sales and marketing, you now have the age-old head-to-head. You are bringing bad leads, other way around, you guys can't sell. You need a CEO or a position that fully understands that, maybe a CCEO or a CRO that carries both responsibilities and drives that alignment because they understand both motions. Otherwise, you end up with each person sitting in front of the CEO saying, marketing's doing a bad job. And then marketing knock the door and go in the next thing and go, sales don't know how to close leads. And the CEO doesn't know who to believe because they're busy doing other stuff. And then it's just, who do they believe?
Chris, you know what? I'm listening to you, and people listening to us probably is thinking, okay, this guy is giving us a hard time. He moved from a 1 seller to 5.
Yep.
Now he's saying that we need 3 departments at least, sales, marketing, and customer success, led by another guy, which is Chief Revenue Officer.
Yep.
So you are making a very, very expensive organization.
Why do you think companies need to raise so much money in order to scale? Okay,
that's a good point. But I think that I tend to agree. The world is much more complex. The processes are taken in a different way. The level of information that they have access to is really, really crazy. So you cannot face this new reality with the same organization. So
absolutely.
The way you organize your sales team has to be up to date and really ready for the new context.
One of the last things I would add on that, though, is, and I'm a huge believer of this, understand your targets that you have achieved, that you are setting, CEO, board, whatever it might be. Reverse engineer that back using the conversion rates at which you can measure and which you understand to set realistic understanding of what at each different level, as you break that revenue down, how many deals do we need, at what ASP, what average sales price, how many people do we need to run that, if you've got 10 salespeople, how many SDRs or BDRs do we need to fuel that, how many meetings do they need to set, at what conversion rates, how much marketing budget do we need to generate the leads, to drive the BDRs, to drive the meetings, to drive you work all of that out, and you don't make numbers like this. You measure what you do today. You then bring in a consultant, or you just go do a lot of hunting, and you look at that entire model, and you look at what are the industry best practices. Now you compare where you are today versus where you should be. Now you know where you're strong and where you're weak. And I've got many examples I can talk about this. I think we're going to come up on time. But now you know where you're strong and where you're weak. Now you know where you need to focus. You don't stop there. You don't break that down at sales must do, SDR team must do, marketing must do. We go back into the sales team. I've got 20 people. I measure each individual person against all these rates so that I now know this is what each department should be achieving. Is it realistic? Am I fueling them in the right way to be successful with the right amount of work? I expect them to work, but is it something that they can achieve to do? And then I measure everyone in the team individually against that average. So I don't just say, well, the average conversion is this. Well, I might have 2 people that are completely skewing the numbers. I want to make sure that I know it on an individual. When you measure, first of all, when you build, and second of all, when you measure everything, you now know which levers to pull. And that's one of the biggest risks that organizations have. They don't know which lever to pull. We're not selling enough. Get more salespeople. Whoa. We need more pipe generation. Hire 3 more SDRs. Whoa, hang on. Build the model. You know, my model's like this big. Every single number, and then it breaks down to every single person. I have some very good software that does it for me. I won't announce it now, but if anyone wants to know.
Don't you think that in the startups this is happening because it's OPM, others people money? Somehow, right?
If you are a good
Because
partner,
if I see,
if you're a good partner or you're a good investor, you're a good VC,
you should.
you should be going in. I've been through these types of diligence before, and the good ones are like, what's the numbers? And I tell them, they say, great. What's the next level numbers? And you tell them and they say, great. And they say, what's the next level numbers? And you tell them and they say, great. Now we trust and understand that you know what you're doing. Because if you don't have, and it's like flying a plane, it's not like, it's windy, go this way. It's like, okay. Every instrument that you've got, measure, 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 measure. And against that, you know which lever to pull. And then you pull 1, 2 levers at a time, no more. And you tweak, tweak, tweak. And now you're flying the plane. That's one of the biggest mistakes companies make.
Super, Chris, man, you give us a lot of homework and food for thinking. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.